So this is a very important time in world history. We're seeing some monumental changes happening right now. The coronavirus situation, it's changing how the economy functions, it's changing politics, it's changing ecology, it's changing everything. This is a time when rapid change is taking place. And, there's an old saying that there are decades when nothing happens and that there are weeks when decades happen. We are in one of those situations right now. There is a lot happening right now. We're seeing the failure of these market-based frameworks, these market-based solutions. We are seeing the failure of capitalist institutions. We're seeing the failure of globalization and this sort of bullshit government response that's prioritizing the needs of the rich. I mean, here in the US, $500 billion for individuals in unemployment and $4.5 trillion for businesses, this slush fund for corporations. And of course, much of that $500 billion that will go to individuals, they'll just have to turn around and put back into their rent, right? So that money will ultimately be transferred from public coffers to the wealthy. So we are seeing the failure of this entire thing, and we are seeing how this economy is really a house of cards. We're recognizing now that what's really important are these basic necessities of life: food, water, housing, clothing, the basic level of medical care. These are the essentials of human life, and the rest of the economy that has been built is really a house of cards that only exists to enrich the wealthy and provide luxuries to people who really don't need them, right? So we're seeing this right now. And of course, we know that the everyday functioning of this economy that we live in is destroying the planet. It's destroying everything, whether we're talking about global warming, ocean acidification, oceanic dead zones, soil erosion, desertification, deforestation, mountaintop removal, mining, strip mining. All of these ecological crises are converging right now. So in many ways, the situation that we're facing with coronavirus is just like a taste of what's coming with the climate crisis, with the convergence of all these different issues. So the question is, how do we respond to this? What do we do in these type of situations? I think it's relatively straightforward. I think we need to organize and resist, as usual. This is what I've been telling people for years, and I think now we're coming to a time where people are recognizing that we can't depend on these industrial systems for food, for the basic necessities of life, for the things that we need, right? As I said, the failure of globalization, the failure of capitalism is becoming obvious. So I think we need to build power from the grassroots. We need to build local communities that have local food systems based around permaculture, based around, local foraging, based around local farms. We need to relocalize our power and build alternative institutions so that we can survive without this dominant system, right? And secondly, I think we need to start working on things like rent strikes, tenant organizing, union organizing. We need to start, organizing further campaigns of resistance to the industrial machine. And I think we need to do this even now, even living under lockdown, not just on social media. I think we need to get on the phone. We need to connect with friends, family, neighbors. We need to talk to people face to face, write letters, write emails, start texting people, right? Revolutionary change starts with conversations. It starts with building unity around ideas, around goals, around what needs to be different in this society. And I think it's essential that be built around a framework of biocentrism. Because the reality is that this industrial model, as we have seen, is bankrupt. It's destroying everything. And if we don't build societies that are based on biocentrism, that are based upon this land base that we live on right now, and our local ecological community, living in sustainability and balance with that community, without relying on, the destruction of far-flung communities to provide us with food and luxury goods and all this bullshit that the consumer culture teaches us we need, that's the basis of any sustainable human future, right? And that's also the basis of an alternative to this industrial model that's destroying everything. So we need to start doing this now. And like I said, I think this is a monumental time. We're experiencing a break, a fracture in the normality of capitalist existence, of industrial civilization, right? And normality, as we have always said, is an atrocity. Whether you're talking about 7 million people who die due to air pollution every year, Whether you're talking about, Cornell study that says 40% of all human deaths are due to air, water, and soil pollution. And that's not even to talk about non-humans, right? We talked about these industrial atrocities that are being perpetrated on the natural world. We need to shut down the fossil fuel economy. And the disease is doing that in some ways. We have seen the grounding of flights. We've seen traffic, huge reductions in traffic. We're seeing massive reductions in pollution, right? These realities are concurrent, that this disease is killing a lot of people, causing a lot of death and suffering, and that the natural world is experiencing some sort of respite from the unrelenting industrial assault. Although, of course, the fishing fleets are still out there, the oil wells are still pumping away, the frackers are still fracking. All of these industrial activities are continuing at a lesser level than they would usually be. But the natural world is fighting back, and it's doing so in a way that is largely indiscriminate. That's what we see. When we think about something like climate change, we see this indiscriminate damage to the industrial machine. And we need to prepare for this sort of future so that we can deliberately build an alternative world and deliberately dismantle the industrial systems that are going to come down anyway. I've been talking for years, and many other people have, about how fragile this way of life is. We're seeing that right now. So when we talk about building local sustainability, building local resiliency, relocalizing our communities and our food systems and our economies, and getting past that sort of consumeristic industrial corporate mindset that has been foisted on us, that has been forced on us, that we've been forced to participate in because land has been privatized, because the colonial culture has deliberately destroyed indigenous cultures, alternative cultures, because they have deliberately destroyed the salmon runs and all the indigenous sources of food, right? We need an alternative way, and this is a real time when we can start building towards that future.